Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. We have Kent Bain with Nine Business Group and Action Coach and Murray Quibal of Accurate Solutions, Aqumatica partner, and we're going to spend some time today talking about a wide variety of topics, everything from COVID-19 to software to business coaching and business topics in general. So I think I'm going to start with Murray. You and I were on a call last night with a bunch of other clients just talking about life as we currently know it. And you made an interesting comment that you've noticed a behavioral change, or that you are feeling or experiencing a behavioral change, and that people have more free time. Can you just kind of go back to that conversation, or that comment you made about how you think society is maybe shifting or moving, or how there's going to be a behavior pattern change?
Yeah, thanks, Kent. I mean, and before I say this, I know, let's be clear, there are some people and businesses that are really, fearful and in trouble. So let's be respectful of that before I make any comments about that. But so I think some people aren't ready maybe to see the change and to see the positive stuff that I might see. So be respectful of that for sure. What I do want to point out, I'm a positive guy. I like to point out things that we might be doing differently today that are different than what we might have done last week. So some of the things I'm seeing is it's a bit of a reset for people and a reset for businesses. And in people, for example, habits that people know they should do, like working out or eating better, or not drinking a whole bunch of beers after they play hockey, things like that, or eating, chicken wings and pizza and beer after hockey, things like that. You probably sit back and go, yeah, that maybe isn't the best thing I do, but I think you get used to your routine. You play hockey, you do great things, and you want to hang out with people. And next thing you know, you've been doing this for years, and you might go, geez, I should probably change that, but you don't, because it's a habit. I think what this has forced us to do over the last few days, or really since Sunday, so it's not even a week, is we have to stop doing many of the things that we've done before. And so what are we replacing them with? Well, I've been running with the dog. I've been riding the bike. I've been, probably drinking beer less. I probably had a couple in St. Patty's Day. You got to do a little bit of that. But I think there's some positive change as you sit back and think about stuff, or even just the fact that we have less ability to do things. Some of the things that we might be doing different, we might sit back in a week's time or a month's time and go, hey, actually, that wasn't too bad. And that works well. Working remotely is one that we do all the time. We have a virtual team. We have cloud-based software, so there's no servers or anything like that. We don't need to be on premise most of the time, and so we're used to this. But I today that are forced to work remotely, that if you give that a week's time or a couple of weeks or a month, they might go, holy crap, that actually was really efficient, and I don't have to drive as much, and I don't have to spend as much time on the road, and they may never go back to the same level of commuting as they used to do. So things like that. I mean, there's a few things like that, but those are some changes in people's behavior that have been forced by a really dramatic shift over the last few days.
Which of those do you think are permanent? I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with you, because I had some thoughts on it last night, but I don't think the group setting was right. So
yeah.
What do you think of those changes are going to be permanent?
Well, I mean, I think it's with anything you have to temper, temper it and say that not everyone will make change. I think I think we think that, borders will reopen at some point in time, and people will still want to do their trips that they've planned forever. So I think, let's be clear, I think some people will do exactly the same things that they've done before. However, I think a great amount of the population will have some permanent change. I think the working remotely is one. I think that's something that, as people, the tools today are great. I've said many times before, is that if someone has a board meeting in Toronto or Boston and they have to travel there to do a presentation for maybe 30 minutes, why can't you do that remotely? You're traveling across the country, or maybe internationally in some cases. And why can't you do that 30-minute presentation remotely? And I think people will go, actually, we can. So I think there'll be permanent change in the way that people work. So that's one thing. Me personally, will I keep running with the dog and working out and things like that? Yeah, I think I will. As much as I say it, it's like, you've coached, myself and others to, if you say it, if you write it down and you start to do it and you develop a pattern around it, yeah, chances are you're going to keep doing that. So I personally think, yeah, I'm going to, I'll want to play hockey again, and I'll probably have a couple beers after each time, but my personal habits are going to change. As much as I say that, my wife will keep reminding me, you as my business coach will keep reminding me, but more than anything, I see positive benefits, and I'll do it myself.
Cool, good for you. I think that the reason I say I want to play devil's advocate is, as a person who spent the better part of the last decade and a half, not necessarily in behavior modification, but obviously business coaching, you get the opportunity to change people's lives, and part of that is changing habits. And I think about, you kind of made some comment that people will travel less, maybe they won't, but I'm looking at it, and my knee-jerk reaction is the amount of people that go on a diet and attempt to change their behavior. They follow the rules for 3 weeks or 2 months or 3 months, and then boom, we have this bounce back effect.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that I am intrigued about to watch going forward with the people around the world. As we get cooped up and locked inside, we have this elastic effect, right? And I do wonder what the bounce back is going to be. When we're done a diet, it's like, oh, we bounce back, we put on half of the weight we lost, or it takes a lot of work to make permanent change. And so that's the part I'm going to be, not necessarily for you or my clients, but kind of more in general around the people, is like, all of a sudden we have this massive explosion. I mean, and turning the lights back on and reigniting an entire travel industry, you can't do overnight, for sure. Like, it's going to take weeks, and if not months, and maybe even a year for some of us to go back to where it was. But I think picking up on one thing you said there about the remote working, looking at short term, I think absolutely. What intrigues me is the people are realizing now. I mean, we've been able to telework for 15 years. My first job when I worked for ESSO, I think I was a teleworker in 1998. So we're talking 20 plus years, the option of teleworking has been there. But I think now there's a lot of smaller companies, right? Imperial Oil went to teleworkers 20 years ago. I think there's a lot of smaller companies going, well, we don't have to, or they avoided it, or they just kept doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, this opportunity in the world is, wow, you know what? We have to telework now. That's just the way it's going to be. And so the smaller companies probably didn't look at the software or the hardware, the infrastructure needed. Now they're being forced to kind of go, can we? And as they start exploring some of these things, like you and I are using Zoom, it's like simple, dead easy, right? But these companies probably never were forced to before, so they never chose to. Now it's like, oh, this is cool. This is actually working. And I think you're right. I mean, probably half of the people that are teleworking in Canada or around the world this week are probably going to keep teleworking on some level. Yeah. There's the efficiencies, there's less drive time, the environmental impact. And we're also looking at, well, we've already made the investment in infrastructure. Why don't we just keep doing that? And I'm looking at it from an economic point of view in my head, wondering, man, what does this mean in 6 months or 18 months on commercial property values and the need for office space? As we have this shift, if we keep people at home and my lease is up for renewal in 6 months or 24 months, and a third of my workforce is now at home, I need less space. So we're already in Calgary anyway, kind of a glut, if you will, of office space. Does that mean we're going to have more? What do you think?
Right now, you know how things work. Is there's with any supply and demand situation, sometimes there's a glut in supply, sometimes there's a over demand, and it has a way of working itself out. In short term, you get some real shifts that cause problems on one side or the other, but over time it does work itself out. So right now, we've got a glut of office space. I think we're going to see that continue, and even far worse than that. But are we going to find ways to use that space or use that land? Yeah, for sure, we will. It might take some time, or it will take some time, and I'm not sure what it'll evolve like. I think we do know that the workspace has changed. It's been changing for a while. I think what we're seeing now in the last few days is just accelerated change that we know was coming. Same with retail, how people shop, the experience. Superstore has had the online shopping experience now for a long time, as of others, where you can, use an app, order some stuff, go pick it up, and have it delivered. That stuff's been around for a while, but just over the last few days, all of a sudden people realize hey, this actually works pretty well. And so it's not new, but it's been rapidly accelerated. And we'll see a rapid change in, yeah, retail environments, shopping malls, how people do their day-to-day life. Not everything's going to change, and it won't all change, but yeah, enough of it will to cause a dramatic glut in supply of that stuff.
Interesting. So if we're forecasting 12, 18 months where we have more people working remotely, I'm going to make some rough assumptions for the conversation because it's all we can do when we're forecasting is making some rough assumptions. So let's put that out there. But let's talk about software. Let's talk about Aqumatica and Accurus. And if we forecast 12 or 18 months where we have more remote workforces, is that good or bad for Aqumatica? Is that good or bad for Accurus, and why?
Like I say, I mean, I'll preface any conversation around, recognizing, yeah, some businesses are going to be really, it's tough that you have to have people that, if you're in a warehouse, you have people that drive trucks and drive, drop product off, people that are in the warehouse driving forklifts and moving it around, and people that are driving trucks to pick it up and sell it, when they're selling it, shipping it, and things like that. So let's be clear that there is still humans and there's still physical interactions that have to happen in the commerce of the world. That's, when we think about companies that buy and sell goods, that's our biggest market. It's a great fit for our software and the business solutions we can do to help people be more efficient with sales orders, purchase orders, invoicing, warehouse management. That's a perfect fit for our software, and we've got some excellent customers there. As far as, so, there's going to be challenges that they deal with, just logistically like that. However, when it comes to systems, yeah, I mean, our system is web-based. It's completely web-based. So if someone buys the product today, there's nothing to install. You don't have to buy servers. You don't have to have people in your company or in your office installing anything. Given that it's completely web-based and cloud-based, it enables itself. We have to press a few buttons. We, as resellers of Aqumatica, actually just tell them to press the buttons. So it's very efficient for us too. But we press the buttons, we get them up and running, and they start using the software. Obviously, there's some implementation that goes around. Our team is and has always been remote and virtual. Yeah, we have consultants in different key areas. There is still a time and a place to have an in-person meeting. We just have to admit, today I got a call from a company that they are in. They're in warehouse management and logistics, and I'm going to go visit them tomorrow and go to their warehouse and physically see how it is. They're still working, and they have to work, and it's important for me as representing software to understand what it's like in the trenches, if you will, of what people are actually doing today in Calgary to keep our supply chain going. And that benefits all of us. I mean, we have food that we need to eat. We've got goods that we need to have delivered to our house day to day. So there are people delivering these things. It's not just happening, as we know, not just, we don't have drones flying around doing it. There's people doing it. So it's important for me to get out there and learn and see how people are managing it, but then also how our software can, right now, a lot of these companies are using Excel spreadsheets to manage this stuff. So it's inefficient, or they may have old on-premise pieces of software that aren't supporting new technologies. So for us, our products, our methodologies are 100% new technologies, and it helps our customers be far more efficient.
So how does it, so if it's cloud-based, say I'm a company with 75 employees, and I've now taken 30 or 40, I've sent them home to work remotely around Greater Calgary area. Do all team members, do all 75 get access to the software? Would I, as a owner of that company, am I concerned about speed, load time? I send them home. What do I need to send them home with technology? Just a laptop and they dial in, or is there a lag on it? So walk us through a little bit of what a business owner might expect if he's sending a third or half of his staff home to use Aqumatica, and what's the response rate going to be?
You response rate in terms of internet speed, that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
response rate in
yeah.
terms of uptake of people being able to use it?
No, no,
Yeah,
we assume that you and your team are going to have like immediate response
yeah,
time within minutes. That part we're not worried about. We're
yeah.
about kind of the software and how it responds if I'm tunneling in or dialing in, and I guess on that front too, how secure is it? If we have 30% of my workforce now tunneling in, how secure is it?
Okay, there's about three topics there. So
Yep,
let
pick
me
one. We'll go back to
okay,
the rest.
yeah. In terms of you mentioned what is it like? So if we are spinning up a workforce of 75 people to use Acumatica, what's that like? A couple points I will make there. First of all, Acumatica is unlimited user licensing, so there's no additional cost. If you have one user or 75, it doesn't matter. All we need to do is enable a user ID, which will take about 30 seconds to set up a user ID, default them to a set of user permissions, and send them, or actually the system will automatically send them their user ID and password. There is no software installed, there's no client installed. They just hit the URL and log in and start using it. So in terms of the ability to get up and running quickly, it really is that easy. There's nothing to install. All you need to do is enable the user and default them to a user group, and you're good to go. In terms of latency, what the user can expect in terms of using a web-based application. The interesting thing is that this stuff is the data that gets transmitted. It's encrypted and it's very efficient. And this is a function of Acumatica being on current web-based technologies versus if you're trying to take an old system, whether it's even an old Windows-based or client-server application, if you're trying to enable that to be web-based, it's not designed to transmit data over internet connections. It's designed to be in your office, wired to an internet, things like that. And that's just the way things were built back in the 80s and 90s. A lot of the traditional software brands are still using code that was developed in those time frames. And it's as kind of techie geeks like we are, as you know, it looks great on the website. It looks perfect. It looks like a new cloud application, but when you rip the covers off it, oh man, this is the same code it was back in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, we used to sell those kinds of products back then because they were current, but now current web technologies are where the industry is going. That's where we've gone as consumer products and consumers. It's taken a while for business products like ERP systems to go there, but Acumatica has been there since its inception, completely web-based. So it's designed to manage internet speeds. As far as the user experience, it will perform. You will, with very few exceptions, you will get, if you know what the internet's like, you'll see some latency, but the latency is, we've got some fairly intense video applications like we're using right now with Zoom, or people will watch YouTube videos. Those are the most kind of graphic intense applications out there. So yeah, based on your internet, that can become slow. Acumatica is just passing encrypted small chunks of data, and compared to what the average user uses on YouTube or email, it is insignificant. So you should expect a user experience exactly like you might when you're running anything off a regular computer. Devices, you mentioned, can they get laptops or PCs or doesn't matter. You can go to Staples and pull the cheapest laptop off the shelf with an internet connection and start using it. Nothing needs to be configured. You can use a smartphone, a tablet, an Apple piece, or an Apple Mac, doesn't matter. Any device anywhere, you don't need to do anything with it. Obviously, the real estate that exists on a small phone probably means that it's probably not the way that an accounts payable clerk will enter invoices. You just need a little bit more real estate to make that usable. However, if you're a salesperson, you want to know the status of leads, if you want to look at a graphic, a dashboard to know what opportunities I have, pulling that up on a smartphone or a device like that works perfect. So again, the user experience and the device that they need is, it's based on, kind of this particular situation. I think the last topic you mentioned was security. Interestingly enough, when we got into cloud computing and cloud ERP, and that was 2010, I guess. So we were pretty early into that kind of thing, especially as related to ERP software. People were concerned about security then. And, to be honest, it was early, and there were still some, traditional IT people that were, kind of raising objections around the current standards and that might exist. What's interesting since that time, that's been 10 years, since that time, we hardly ever address an issue around security anymore. It's what we've seen over time is the large, government systems, are using cloud technology. They're using web-based technology. What we're seeing is data centers that are run by Microsoft or Amazon Web Services or Google, the big data centers of the world are the most secure physically, the most secure physical data centers than you're going to find anywhere in the world. So you as a small company, there's no way you're going to be able to develop physical security measures anywhere close to what Amazon is. So don't even think about it. Even the largest enterprises in Calgary, creating your own data center, there's no way you're going to be able to afford or want to afford the levels of security that are already in data centers that are managed globally through Amazon or Microsoft, for example. So the security at the most physical level is strong. When we think about, say Aqumatica as a purpose-built web application, security is baked into the access rights, the encryption of the data. You get as the highest standards that you can find around that. We've got compliance reports that are able to be shared around the infrastructure, the redundancy, and that's kind of at the infrastructure layer. But then how you're actually managing user interactions through access rights and that is as strong as you're going to see with any application. Now, I'm happy to debate that with anybody at any time, but that's kind of where the industry has gone in the last 10 years is, the current state of cloud infrastructure is more secure than you're going to find anywhere else.
All right. For a fun question, kind of going a bit sideways, is there anybody for your niche market, your target audience? What are the 3 or 4 typical competitors that people would be comparing against?
So I always say our biggest competitor is we've got the number one competitor is doing nothing. The second competitor is Excel. So that's not probably the answer you might have heard, but again, for us, when I say that the number one competitor is doing nothing, people are people. They are used to doing what they've done yesterday, and they almost need and it sounds terrible, but they almost need a tragedy of some kind to force them to make change. So back to what we talked about first of all, but in a business, that tragedy might be maybe you're using Excel and somebody deleted your spreadsheet, or somebody edited a formula on it, and now you've quoted a product, $20,000 less than you should have, or you've deleted or omitted a product that should be on there, and now your quote is $50,000 less. I can tell you examples like that from every single one of the people that we talk to, our customers, our prospects. Every single one of them can tell you an example where data has been breached, or we've lost data because we're using Excel, or we're exchanging stuff on thumb drives, or somebody has stolen somebody's laptop and things like that. So I think that's why I say the competitor is, even though you want to do, you're still, that, but it's still easier to just say, it's, I just lost $50,000 on a quote that we just did, but Joe said he'll make it back on the next quote. And yeah, we'll keep using our old system. We'll keep using our spreadsheets. Human nature is to do what we've done in the past. So again, hopefully that $50,000 error or a significant data breach or a change in the business is enough to make a different change. But human nature says it doesn't, and people fall back in the same pattern. Again, I've talked about Excel. So I think if you think about, say, some of the traditional software competitors, you'll see Uh, so the typical ones, if we're in a competitive cycle, within mid-market software, NetSuite is been around for a long time. They're really the leaders in cloud ERP. So I give NetSuite a ton of credit for being leaders in a space that didn't exist, and that was probably 20 years ago when they first started as NetLedger. And so they've evolved, and NetSuite is one that we typically see. They are a true cloud based ERP product, just like Aqumatica. And so we are similar in terms of technology as NetSuite. So we'll see that if we see companies that are wanting to go true cloud, true web-based, we will see, they probably have found NetSuite along with Aqumatica. Some of the other traditional ones are, Microsoft US Dynamics product lines, Sage. There are quite a few products, the old ACPAC. There's a few Sage product lines that they've picked up over the years. There's lots of industry ones as well too that we see. Again, most of them are traditional client server applications that have been kind of repositioned with really just mostly graphics and branding, but behind the scenes, they're usually the same products that have been for years. So there's a wide range of products. If you think of competitors, we are squarely within the mid-market, mid-size, so we have functionality that would be similar to the ones I've mentioned in terms of its business requirements. Some of the advantages we have is that we've got no legacy applications we're trying to support or trying to appease a legacy customer or a reseller or partner base. We as Aqumatica, we've got one product. It's always been on current technology, and if we're trying to adopt the latest standards in AI, artificial intelligence, or the Internet of Things, or robotics, or machine learning, data and analytics, we are right there with those current technologies to help our customers get more, not just from an ERP or transactional standpoint, to get more out of the data using current and emerging technologies. So those are some of the advantages that we see of kind of being on that technology layer. And I guess certainly us as a partner, in the local market, it's up to us to make sure that we're, making sure that people know that we can do this stuff and we can help them leverage technology to take their solutions a whole lot better place than they might have even imagined.
Thanks. Over the last decade, as you've been in the space and learning and understanding it, are there 3 or 4 or 5 main concerns or fears that your clients or prospects have over either changing from the current way of doing things or moving to the cloud? And what would be those top concerns, and what would you say to address them?
Kent, I don't know if it's on my end or not, but I couldn't hear the first bit of what you just said.
Oh.
There's might be an unstable internet connection on my end, but anyway, sorry.
So basically the question was, in the last decade of being in the space, seeing the patterns, the changes to software, the expertise and the time and effort putting into building better software, there's still some hesitation that people have, as you mentioned, from change. Not everybody likes change. We hire people who like stability, and now we want change, and so it makes it hard. But if there were 5 main concerns that your prospects, your clients have had in going from the old way of doing things to changing software to going to the cloud, what would those top 5 fears or hesitations be, and how do you guys address them?
Top 5. So top 5 in going to the cloud, or top 5 objections of any kind, or what are you thinking there? I can come up with 5 for sure.
Sure. Which one you want? Which one's easier?
Well, so because I think I'll phrase it like this. So top 5 objections of a company adopting a new cloud ERP platform. How about that? And that can keep
Perfect.
it. So I would say probably some companies are too small. So what we'll be the first to say, if your business, we're looking obviously for growing businesses that are looking for change, but if your business can run perfectly well in QuickBooks, you should use QuickBooks. And so that would be the one. I mean, so we end up talking to companies that, hey, we're wanting to make a change, and they've got multifaceted businesses that may do a bunch of stuff, but they're only doing, $800,000 a year in sales. And, if they're wanting to grow to be a $8 million company in a couple of years, that's a good fit. But if they're going to stay as a less than $1 million company, there's no sense in them investing in a mid-sized ERP product of any kind, let alone Acumatica. I mean, if you are into that tier that you do need, you need to break away from, say, QuickBooks or Sage 50. If you need to break away from that, then Aqumatica, you'll find the price point of Aqumatica is going to be favorable compared to other ones you're looking. But again, if you can run perfectly fine on QuickBooks, you should keep using it. So that'd be the one thing. I would say size and volume. That's the one objection. It's not really an objection. It's just they may get excited and they want to talk to us, and we get excited too. And then we start to learn about the business and go, you know what? I'm going to tell you to keep using QuickBooks. That's the best product for you right now. So that's one thing. Change, human resistance to do something different. You might find an owner or a president that gets excited about doing something different, but his people will never change. And that's one thing. Or you might get it the other way, where you get somebody on a salesperson. Maybe you've hired a young salesperson. They say, hey, I want to get a CRM system, customer relationship management. I want to use technology to track my customers and my opportunities better, and I want to use my smartphone. Well, that's some positive change, but if ownership or management has no interest in making the investment and they don't see the value, then that's going to go nowhere either. So you got humans maybe resistant to change, or just resistant to do some things a little bit differently. So that's maybe the second. So one is size. The second is just resistance to change. Couple others would be resistance to adopting, say, a cloud ERP, is that some people, they will be, I guess, I talked about people again. I mean, a lot of times is that the technology, we say all the time, is the success of a solution is not just dropping a piece of software in and expecting magic to happen. It's dependent on people and processes. So again, I usually say they're at least equal in terms of the importance of people, process, and product. But the objections probably are more people.
Coming back. Frozen in time.
Where they go, oh, geez, if we have a more efficient piece of software, what am I going to do now? So we want to help the business be more efficient. And we think that we can redeploy that person to, instead of entering the data into a spreadsheet multiple times and then entering into an invoicing system and all that kind of stuff, instead of entering the data much times, let the data be entered once and do a little bit more business analysis to say, how can I be more efficient and get more customers and sell more product? But again, so instead of letting go of people, hopefully they're good enough that you want to keep them and redeploy them. But I guess people being territorial and not willing to change is another objection. I think objections, if we shift gears a little bit to say if someone understands all that, they want to change, they want to buy a system, and they are in a buying process. Some of the objections, if they hear about Aqumatica, they might go, well, geez, I've never heard of Aqumatica. I've heard of Microsoft. I've heard of SAP. I've heard of Sage. I might be more comfortable going there. We've heard that objection for sure. And my answer to that would be, is Aqumatica has been around for 10 years, which in some industries is a very short time. Other industries, it's a long time. You have to have a critical mass of customers before you should be considered relevant for people to buy. And I would say in the early years, yeah, that would be a legit kind of complaint or objection to say Aqumatica doesn't. Who are they? Where are they going to be? Where are they going to be in next year or 10 years? And are they how many customers they have? I would say right now Aqumatica is probably just announced over, I think, 6,500 customers or 6,000, somewhere in that range worldwide. I think Aquamatica has more than passed that critical mass in terms of the number of customers. Aquamatica has customers in industries that are within our target market. We're not, perfect fit for all industries, let's be clear. But the ones that we are targeting and that work well, Aquamatica has an excellent set of customers, and the numbers are strong. The analysts are recognizing that as well. The industry awards are kind of just get more and more each year. The number of partners and kind of third-party vendors that are getting onto the platform are just rapidly increase each year. And so that's a strong indication of longevity, of confidence in the brand, and that it is a great place to invest in. But I would say the critical mass, you don't want to, some of these products have been around for years. There's some comfort in the brand there, but there's also risk in what's going to happen to these. They are going to, if you have an older technology, it will be replaced. So some of Aquamatica's strongest branding and strongest messages are the future proofing of its technology. Given that we are on current technology and we continue to invest that in that way and continue to update that and continue to integrate and foster integrations with new technology, really does future proof your investment in that. And so, I think Aquamatica has the best of all worlds around that. But it still is an objection. I mean, people will still say, these other ones have, instead of 6,000 customers, they've got 60,000 customers. And that's used as an objection. Right now, I don't think that's a valid objection. I think we're on the good side of that. I guess that's 4. You want me to come up with a 5th?
No, that's pretty good, actually. Let's have a little fun with the analogy of number of users and popularity, I guess, for confidence in buying. Any idea? I mean, we'll have to take this offline, but an interesting stat would be is the number of Audis or the number of Ferraris or the number of Lamborghinis that are sold each year. Well, on a ratio basis, if only 6,000 Ferraris are being sold a year, and Audi sells 60,000, and Chevrolet sells 600,000, does it make your Lamborghini any less valuable or less relevant because they sell less of it? What would you say to that? Any comment?
A couple of thoughts. I mean, I wouldn't consider us the Lamborghinis of the world. I mean, we might be somewhere between the Audi. Maybe the Audi's kind of a good kind of a mix. Is that we're not the cheapest product out there. We're not the sexiest product out there. I think most people would think of ERP software as not being the most shiny and sexiest stuff. So just by its nature, we might be the most interesting one. And in the ERP world, we might be, in some cases, people might perceive us to be the Lamborghini. But I wouldn't consider Aquamatica to be boutique or luxury based, which I would probably associate more to the Lamborghini or Ferrari brand. I would say, quality, leading edge, and that would be companies such as Audi, BMW. Those ones would be thought of as that way. Certainly Chevrolet, they would like, or GM would like to think of themselves as that, and they have certainly lots of innovation towards that stuff too. I think though, if you start to, I think they've been around a while. I think as a comparison to ERP, GM might be I hesitate to say SAP of the world. They might be the Microsoft, that they're kind of trying to be all to everybody, and you're not sure where there might be. I mean, Microsoft is an excellent company, and they'll sustain, as strong as any company will. But as far as ERP software, the messages that they put out in the market historically have been kind of, maybe all over the place, in the sense that they are not just involved in ERP. They're involved in so many things that sometimes ERP is kind of set aside. And I know a lot of partners that we work with now are ones that used to be there, and now have kind of looked for something different. Yeah, I don't know. I can probably go on for a few more
Well,
examples, but
I wasn't talking about cars as a pricing analogy. I was trying to tie it back to popularity, right? From a usage standpoint. So pricing set aside, just because say there's only 6,000 Ferraris sold every year, doesn't make it any less good than a car company that sells 60,000. I think is where I was trying to go with the
yeah,
analogy, right?
yeah,
So I think what, to reinforce those people listening and watching is, great, Acumatica is at 6,000, 6,500. I don't think people should put credit or value on the number of loads or implementations relative to dealing with quality or inspecting the functionality.
okay,
That's kind of where the analogy was,
yeah,
and I think that's kind of, so it was a good wrap up. One last question. When you're working with a company or you have an ideal client in mind, talk to us about the culture or the attitude of the people that makes a successful implementation. You've done dozens now, or maybe
yeah.
hundreds of implementations. What makes a good company, or if I'm the owner of a company, if I'm looking at the culture, the team of my people, not just from a need or want, but what's going to make a successful implementation if I'm looking at the culture or the attitude of my people?
Yeah, it's a, I like the question. It's a, I'm going to uh, waffle a little bit to start, and then I'll conclude with what I think would be the, kind of the ideal type of customer or people. And I'll say, when I waffle, I said, every company is different. You will have some companies that where the people are uh, very hands-on and they're very technical, and they'll just roll up their sleeves and just dive in and do stuff. Other companies that are not that way, and in some cases just a function of time, where people, they might like to or love to step in and roll up their sleeves and learn everything and read all the manuals and watch all the videos, but hey, they're wearing two hats if not more, and they just don't have time. So what I would say, we can implement successfully, and we have successful customer stories in either of those. So it doesn't, we can, it's important to understand people and understand the resources that exist and their strengths and what makes them tick as best as we can. Now, it's not something we can, walk into a company and and either send a quote immediately. If someone says, how much is this going to cost? It's not something I can just throw one number and have it to be accurate. Again, because the biggest variable is people, and it's hard to assess that. However, once we start working with them, we'll start to know, okay, this is what the people are like. This person will do what they say they can do, and will do it 10 times faster than we might think. When we start working with them, we'll see that. And in other cases, that person will not do what they do, and it may take 10 times longer. So again, we can be successful either way. What I'll say is the best situation that we walk into is a company that is, first of all, they see the need for change. They see an opportunity to change, and they want to leverage technology to help them grow their business and be more efficient, sell more products to people, and they are committed to that. So there is a investment that they're making in it, and they see us as partners. We're all working together in the same team to help enact that change. So there's that mind share around using technology to your advantage. So that's one thing. The second thing would be people. In some cases, it needs to just be one person who really can dive in and do a bunch of stuff themselves. We have said many times, and I can give you probably 3 or 4 customer implementation examples where the customer has largely done it themselves. Now, that sounds, in many cases, for an ERP system, some people will say that's impossible. I will say that's not, because we've seen it happen, and some of our customers have done that. We will foster that. We encourage that. We love to see that happen. However, it's not for everybody. So I think that's the key thing, is to say that we don't want people just to think that, hey, we'll let them flounder around and do it themselves, because that's not what I'm saying. What I will say is that we have seen people that can take stuff on. They will dive in, read the manuals, watch the videos, and actually start to implement themselves. And in some cases have been completely successful doing it themselves. Sometimes they'll leverage us a little bit. They'll say, hey, I'm stuck on this piece. Can you help me here? Or they might want us to get started. But I would say that that's the most successful. The company and even one or a few key individuals, they take ownership of it, they run with it, and they understand that it's on them to make sure that it works the best. That is the best kind of a company and the best kind of a situation to do that. Now we are here to help and support that as best as we can. ERP software, and Aqumatica is not yet. I say yet because it'll go there quickly, maybe not completely, but it's not yet as like Gmail or the kind of an app on your phone where you can just press the button and start using it with no training or no knowledge at all. We're not there yet. It is a multifaceted piece of software that hits all areas of the business. So depending on your business, you do need to involve, of course, stakeholders and all of it to make it successful. But again, we have a lot of great online tools, training resources. It's all web-based, so there's no kind of you don't have to travel to Florida or wherever else to take the training. You can take it immediately on your own time and things like that. So those are things that we see that work best. But like I say, we can deal with, we just need to assess and deal with the company and the people to understand the culture, and we can work within really any of that. But those are the ones that are most successful, the ones that are kind of more interested in technology. They want to be efficient, and they've got people that can dive that in. They will spend less time with us. Their costs with us will be less, and some people will think that's a better situation. But again, lots of other companies would rather leverage us for a little bit more, and we're happy to do that as well.
Are there any companies that would have a culture flaw or a bad attitude that would make that, if I'm on the outside looking, and if I'm the owner of the company, I'm the president or I'm the manager, that you would counsel or say it's not right because of this, or here's some stuff going on in my organization that would be red flags that would make for a poor or unsuccessful implementation?
Yeah.
But maybe you would counsel, if you will, that leadership team to address before we deploy software.
Yeah, I mean, and we've done this before. I mean, what we like to do first is, we're not here to, shove software down people's throats. I'm a chartered accountant with a specialization in information technology. Our team, we've got so we're all CPAs. We've got lots of CPAs on staff, lots of consultants. We are consultants first. It's important that we understand the business requirements first, and then determine if there's a fit for the software. So I can think of lots of examples where we've gone in, we've talked to people, and we've told them, this isn't going to work. This isn't the right time. It's not you don't have the right people, or you don't have the right processes. And we've made that recommendation, even though in some cases they said, we want to buy your software, and we'll say no. And I think the reason is that, again, if you don't have the right people in place, or you're not committed to, a lot of companies, let's be clear, they don't have processes, they don't have documentation. It's common. I don't want to, that's very common with small businesses that we deal with. But if they're not committed to process changes, or to documenting things, and to committing to the change, it is just that the system will fail. So there's no point in you buying software if you're gonna fail like that.
What would be those behaviors, or what would be the traits of a company that, as an owner or as a president, I would see in my staff that would kind of give me red flags to kind of go, okay, I got to change some stuff before I do software? What character traits would you recommend a president or manager be looking for in his team that says this may not be the right time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That would be a time I'd probably bring in a guy like you, Kent, because again, we are, as much as we've acknowledged the importance of people, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a human resources consultant. We're here to help people understand how we can make their business more efficient. We understand the importance of people, but and I can give you a couple of things that I have seen over the years. But again, I think there's a level of business coaching, maybe some strategic consulting, that they need to address as a business that has nothing to do with software. I mean, I would say, again, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. Some companies, they just need to, if they want to have, this is going to date me a little bit, but if you've got 20 people in the typing pool, we used to have typing pools where people would type stuff up, and there would be literally 20 people in a room that would type up documents, and that's what they would do. But if that works well for the business, some companies, many still do business on paper, and they will enter that piece of paper a dozen times, if not. And I'm not kidding. Whether it's service companies are notorious for that. They'll have literally, and you can easily find probably 20 times that they entered the same information. But you know what? If that's how they want to do it, that's great. If they want to, it inhibits growth. There's some lack of efficiency around that. But in some cases, that's just the way they're going to do it, and they should continue to do that. So, I mean, if they're not wanting to change, I suppose that's a real red flag. If they go, well, it works perfectly well. We're running an $80 million company on the old Simply Accounting, and it works perfect. Okay, now, and it's not Simply Accounting using. I guarantee you, there's spreadsheets, there's manual processes, there's a lot of extra people. But if that works well for the business, they should keep doing it. So again, those would be red flags for us, and we would go, "Hey, great, keep doing that." And we'll rather talk to someone that really wants to have us help enact change. But we can't hit people over the head to make them change.
So, in summary, then, a client or somebody looking in software, a good client would be someone has a team that's willing to change. They're open-minded, and they have a growth mindset. Either their business is already growing, or they have a mindset that they're in a position to grow. Are there a couple, three other characteristics that you feel a good client or that business owners would be looking for as characteristics? Here's 2 or 3 more that if you're checking these boxes, Aqumatica and Accurus would be a good fit for you going forward.
A couple things I'd probably say. I mean, as far as a industry, if you're buying and selling product, that's a good industry fit for us. So, and that can cover off kind of several kind of sub industries. But if you're you're selling oil field products, whether it's, tools, pumps, valves, things like that, or if you're distributing, we have a couple customers in the industrial insulation industry. So that's kind of creeping a little bit into construction, but not so much on the service, but on the supply side. So you're supplying goods, and you need to purchase them from a vendor, bring them in, stock them, sell them, things like that. That's a good industry for us. And we've got the products and solutions we have for that are strong, and they're getting better all the time. Like I say, we're leveraging some of the emerging technologies to pull data feeds from other places that, some of this sounds a little pie in the sky for some, but it's up to us, again, as a solution provider, to bring these kind of technical solutions to the customers and the market we have to make people more efficient. So that's a good fit from an industry. I've said a growing company. So if you're content to stay the status you're doing, great. But if you're looking to get into other markets, that might be geographic. So if you're wanting to maybe expand in other areas of Canada or expand into the US, and that's probably what we're seeing right now, is that the US, there's a lot of industries down there that have been booming. This is, take these comments back a week or so, because things have changed like crazy in the last few days. But traditional, a lot of our customers have found that there's just a bigger market in the US, and so they've established an office down there and a presence there. They've hired local people, but they are run from the same management as in Canada. So for us, it's not, there's no software to install. You just set up in some cases, another company, or might be another branch, or even just another warehouse location, depending on the structure, and they are immediately up and running. One of our customers just made an acquisition in Eastern Canada. There was, from a implementation standpoint, they had some new customers to add. They sent us the customers. We loaded them some different pricing structures that were in place there, some users that needed to be added, and some training. But there was no infrastructure. Nothing else needed to change. We just set up the users, and we did some remote training. Uh, they did some on-site training with some other people from here, but by and large, from the system standpoint, went up and running quickly. You asked me for three. I would say so. Growth, industry is one. Growth. I think technology might be another. If you find, again, if people are interested in leveraging technology, that is probably a good fit. I mean, if you're sometimes people are intrigued enough. They may not be technically savvy, but at least they're intrigued enough to go. I think there might be something here that we should look at, and then we can work with them. And if they trust us, enough to try to help them understand how to go about this and understand what's real and what's relevant for their business, then that's a good fit as well. But again, sometimes it's just hard to get people over there. I mean, well, we had a prospect the other day, and they were insistent that they have an on-premise installation of software on servers on site. And we looked at that and said, you know what, we'll of course talk to them and understand why that might be required, but inherently it's probably not a good fit for us. And because it's just, it's an indication that they're kind of stuck in some traditional ways.
Would there be any advantage for anybody in today's world wanting or benefiting from an on-site installation?
Not in our world. No, I think it's there are some. I mean, hey, let's be clear. There are some industries that do require some stuff to be a little bit more sensitive and local. If you're in a healthcare and government, there is a requirement, for provincial, management of data. So in some cases, the best way to do that is to have an on-premise installation. Now, that's not a market for us. So, but if that's the company requirements and they're in that industry, it's just not a good fit for us. So we would pleasantly tell them that, yeah, we're not a good fit, and we could probably suggest some other ones that they looked at. But companies that we deal with, yeah, I can't think of reasons why they should want to adopt stuff locally and do stuff. The industry and the technology has changed such that that's far less efficient and far less secure than it used to be, and that they might think it is.
So in summary, you're saying that 95+% of all companies in North America and Western Canada, there's no logical case to be made to do an on-site installation with any type of ERP system.
If you're small, maybe you just set up a QuickBooks local install or run it on a spreadsheet. So I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, some work perfectly well like that.
But even that, I was talking to my accountant a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about even QuickBooks moving online.
Yeah.
And the ability for the accountant to do live bookkeeping and do live reporting remotely. So in that case, even QuickBooks isn't a direct installation anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
Cloud-based. So it's. And that's kind of where I'm going, is like, there's somebody out there, there's a sales rep, trying to push, or there's a piece of software where somebody's fighting to keep an on-site installation. And I guess I'm looking at it going, if there's a public service announcement out of this video, that'd be it, is like, give your head a shake.
Yeah.
There's no on-site installation for any industry except for maybe 2 or 5 that would benefit from an on-site installation. I want to go back a little bit. You talked about a prospect or client doing an expansion to another region, another territory. So let's say you got a client. Joe's excavating. He's here in Calgary, and he gets an opportunity to go. He buys out a competitor in Saskatoon. He's currently using Aqumatica. He's partnered with you guys for the implementation and support with it. He's been up and running for a couple of years. How fast and easy is it for Joe's Excavation to set up operations and merge with another ongoing business? Is that 2 hours? Is it 25 hours? What would be some things that you would counsel Joe's Excavation to think about in doing that acquisition, and how long is it going to take to implement and bring both locations into one platform?
I would say, a couple thoughts there. First of all, technically, there's really no time at all. So technically, if we said, okay, we're going to set up a new Calgary branch or a Calgary warehouse, at the act of doing that literally would take about 30 seconds.
Okay.
So, so then there again, there's no install, there's no infrastructure, anything like that. The people in Calgary, they can use the exact same computer that they may have had already, or they can go to Staples and buy something for $300 and start working. So now, we need to set up a user ID and a password, or you could use wouldn't recommend using generic passwords, but they literally, it literally could be 30 seconds to get that
Okay.
up.
So
we
we're up
probably
and
want
running. We got access to the software, but I have Joe's Excavating bought Ann's Excavating in Saskatoon, and they've been in business for 10 years, and they were using QuickBooks or some other piece of software. What would that client expect from a conversion to take those set of books and migrate them to get one set of records?
I mean, so then the other set. So technically, like I said, technically setting it up would take that long. And then, and you could, set up some users and stuff like that, and it takes a little bit more. The little bit of the harder one is that business. If the business is exactly the same, then again, it wouldn't take much time either. If you have the same products, possibly the same customers, then all of a sudden that can come up. You can start selling that or start processing orders immediately as well. Chances are, though, is that even in a different location like that, you do have new customers and maybe some new products. So that was the case I referred to with our customer that bought this company in Eastern Canada. Is that they had similar products and some of the same vendors and customers, but they had another set that they needed to. So they sent us a list and we loaded them. Now, it really can be that easy as well. However, the list usually, doesn't have, email addresses or doesn't have, so, there's a little bit of list management that goes in, or data cleaning and data scrubbing and stuff that goes in around that. So
but it's not a 50-hour project. It sounds it's more like it's 10 or 20 hours top sort of thing.
Well, I mean, it can be even with that. I mean, if you send us a list of customers that's clean, that can be imported in about 5 minutes, So again, the technical aspects of that are very easy to do. It's usually the data management that takes a little bit of extra time, but it's got nothing to do with our system. It's just whatever they can get out of their old system.
But what about the accounting records? What about the journal entries? What about?
I mean, so that helps them get up and running. But then you do have, with any implementation, you have a set of historical data, historical records that could include master file records, customers, vendors, inventory items, and transactional records. So that could be open accounts payable, open accounts receivable, outstanding checks, open purchase order, sales order, things like that. Each of those takes time to, assess what's the volumes. And if in some cases, they may have very small volumes, so we just have them enter it. Other cases, if the volumes are high, we'll have to get a data dump or a data feed and we load them in. Usually, again, the time involved is more of a procedures, establishing the right cutoff and cutover procedures, and that it is as simple or as literal as, okay, take these pile of paper and put them in this pile for invoices that are, since April, since the end of March, for example. April 1st invoices go in this pile, March ones go in this pile, and then, okay, let's put these in the old system and these in the new one, and then we deal with the cutover from that. But again, there's usually some time. Again, it's people. People haven't been through this before, so some of them will need a lot or a little hand holding around that. And so it's not that we're going to be entering the invoices or doing their jobs in all cases. Some cases we end up helping them do that or doing it ourselves. So then all of a sudden that could take a little bit more time, and it's just a function of people, the volume of data, and the complexity. So, I guess that's why it's a bit of a hard question to answer. It can be anywhere from a few minutes or a few hours to 50 hours or more, but it does depend on the nature of it and the data. Hey, I have another meeting at 1 here. I should probably.
Oh, all right. I got one more question for you, but we'll park it for next time.
I should probably go there.
Go. This was fun. I'll hit stop recording here. I will load it to Dropbox, and then you can go in, and I think you can probably cut out likely, probably 9 different segments. We can load the video in its entirety, but I think more importantly, you can probably cut it down into, each question and post it to YouTube as kind of each question goes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's something for Samantha to do on the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.
Okay. See you. Bye.